I'm just wanting to share with others what we experienced here in Elmore as votes come up regarding school consolidation. I think what concerned me the most is that there was very little input from, well, there's a lot of input from families that were concerned about what was happening with education for their children, but the input was disregarded. And I think the whole process was as undemocratic as a process could be here in Elmore. And there's so much to talk about as far as what was distasteful about it. It starts with being misled at the town meeting about a study being done and being told after the vote, the first vote where we voted no, that, well, I guess people didn't understand what study meant. They didn't feel like they needed to clarify that early on when people voted to, yeah, let's study it and see what happens. In fact, what they were doing was creating the articles of a merger, and a merger that we would have to vote definitively on come November, which we did, and voted no. Having studied it ourselves, a group of working families, educated professionals, and retired people and grandparents, and still coming up with a no vote. This wasn't the right answer for our families, it wasn't the right answer for our town. And the first conversation had after that vote at the first school board meeting, where we showed up with pen and paper in hand, ready to take part in what the process to come, was to hear how a revote can be outlined. Which I think astounded a lot of people, the idea that, we don't like the vote, so let's just revote, we'll do it again. I think only then it started to dawn on us the machine that we were getting caught in, and this machine started in Montpelier. There was an agenda, and it didn't matter what families wanted for their children, where their education for their kids was concerned. It mattered what whose political agenda was going to get pushed forward, and that was all we had to. Once we realized we were in that, I don't think we had the ability to overcome it. I mean, we beat it the first time, but the second time all the stops, I think, were pulled, and it was too much. We're a town of about 800 or so people, and the full force of Montpelier was behind this merger happening. It was to make a statement, so much so that at our informational meetings, town informational meetings, they had Montpelier brass come up to tell us what we needed to understand about this and why this was a good thing for us, and not be allowed to ask questions. We just had to sit and listen while they told us how good this would be. And I think the scare tactics that they brought out too is really playing to people's worst fears. Your taxes will go up at a ridiculous rate, which the math we could never find supporting those numbers. In fact, they couldn't support the numbers. The numbers changed throughout the various informational meetings we had. The numbers kept changing, as we knew they would. They must, because they didn't make any sense. We had a math professor, I should say, from UVM, people who work in accounting, and we were all very much interested in seeing how this would work, and it in our mind would not. It's a little sad that they didn't vote on the ethics committee for the state this year, and they pushed that vote out, or voting on it out, because we, I think, desperately needed an ethics check on how things were conducted here. I saw our school board completely disregard the will of the people that they represent and who elected them. Our town lister writing threatening letters and calling people at their homes and using her position to support the numbers that were being shared by the merger committee. Ultimately, I think what was most distressing is that it had very little to do with the town of Elmore. They didn't care that we were concerned about our one-room schoolhouse, the last schoolhouse, one-room schoolhouse in Vermont. They didn't, that our general store that is near our one-room schoolhouse didn't wouldn't be impacted at all by a potential closure of the school, how their statements in their merger committee completely contradicted items that were in the merger agreement. 46 pages, I read it all, and not all of it, if not most of it, didn't make a lot of good sense to a big group of us who were really concerned about where education was going. I'm not sure what else to say about it.
It's fantastic.
I think another big question in my mind, which really didn't dawn on me till after the second vote, the revote, was why was Vermont trying so hard to go in a direction that a good majority of the rest of the country is moving away from. Most of the, most states now are starting to turn towards universal choice. And this issue was never totally about school choice for me, but certainly was a big piece of it. But what was the drive towards this position? And again, I think it comes to bad math. Someone's trying to do numbers in a way that makes this look good. This idea, which hasn't worked well in Maine, which hasn't worked well in New York. There's numerous papers to suggest that forced mergers don't have positive outcomes. So it still remains a question. What's it all about? And we might not know for a while. The sense of the community revolves pretty much around the school. I mean, events take place at the town hall from the school. The kids do a reading. Halloween is at the town hall. The kids come there. We're too rural for them to go house to house. And again, I don't think the sense of community had much of an impact on the people who were elected by us to be thinking about their community. Of course, we're concerned that when the 4-year stipulation is up that the school will close, though there's also a clause in it which was always glossed over in these informational meetings, that unless it's voted on by the community to close it sooner. And I certainly think that if they use the same tactics that they used to get this revote and push these numbers that didn't really come across very clear to us, if they use the same tactics, I'm sure it will come up for a vote. Your taxes are going to go up if you don't close the school, which would, I think, be a devastating blow to the community. As I said, it's the heartbeat. And one of our local singer-artists wrote a song about the Elmore School being the heartbeat of the community. So it will certainly be a big blow to this little village if we do lose it. And I do want to say one more thing about the divisiveness, just came to me. Also, I think our community was thrown into such turmoil with this vote because of the tactics used, which included pitting retirees, unlimited incomes against families, working families with children. So far, they went so far as to say families are only 77 households of the community. Didn't suggest that we were nearly half the population, but just only 77 households, which I know directly relates to how much in taxes we might be paying. But it really turned the community upside down by pitting, instead of coming up with another option that we were never able to talk about, we were never able to discuss other ways of meeting our budget needs. They decided that if we pit one against the other, the rich against the poor, or the families against the retirees, they would get what they wanted, and ultimately they did.